official registration process for migrants who have overstayed or entered the country illegally. The online registration process will begin from Monday 26th of January and end on Wednesday 25th of February 2026. All applicants are first required to register through the official portal at migrantregistration.gov.tt. That's migrantregistration.gov.tt. After completing the online registration, there will be a mandatory in-person processing and verification which begins at the end of February 2026. The start date for that phase will be announced through official government channels. The in-person registration will take place at the Hazley Crawford Stadium, Port of Spain, the Atto Bolden Stadium in Balmain, Couva, and the Larry Gomes Stadium in Malabar, Arima, as well as the Dwight York Stadium, Bacalet, Scarborough, Tobago. Applicants will undergo a comprehensive verification process which will include vetting by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service involving fingerprinting and background checks. You will also be required to undergo basic medical screening. Upon completion of the registration process, successful applicants will be required to pay $700 for the migrant registration card. The ministry reminds undocumented migrants your participation in this exercise is essential, as failure to register during this window will result in deportation. This special registration process for migrants is your opportunity to be documented, protected, and allowed to work legally in Trinidad and Tobago for a defined period. For additional instructions, along with online application and required forms, visit the official portal at migrantregistration.gov.tt. That's migrantregistration.gov.tt. This message brought to you by the Ministry of Homeland Security and the Information Division, Office of the Prime Minister.
WESN.
Well, apologies. I guess there's a virus going around. I think this is the second time I've had it for about a month or so. But we'll continue to try. This is Talking Point on WESN, the content capital. Unlike some of my contemporaries, this is not going to be a show about fun and games and the festive carnival atmosphere, although it will be about carnival events, happenings that's been going on within the last week. Apparently, certain FET stages had some barnstormers, it seems, amongst other things. One of the situations, though, and I find it interesting now, as we get into this somewhat energetic, rowdy time, the opposition has, at least for now, seemingly settled down. Now, you could judge the content of what they have to say at their weekly press conferences as a separate thing, but I would argue at the very least the tone has improved. Not necessarily that it's going to wipe away all of the past ills, but at least it's a beginning. And one of the things that they brought up at the previous press conference was the whole situation of the cultural debate. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I fully agree with the argument on this issue that was presented. Not that I disbelieve the speaker, because this was presented by former Minister of Communications, MP Digicel Central, Simon de Nobrega, when he said that whenever the PNM want to bring up culture, acknowledging the fact that the PNM does not own Carnival, and I guess you could say by extension the implied statement of Afro-Trinbagonians don't own Carnival. But he did say whenever it comes up, when PNM is speaking about the culture, Carnival, it ends up being a debate about race. Again, I don't necessarily know if it's true that the UNC just automatically do anything that comes with regards to culture, push race. It is interesting that on some level, the one race in the country that has been able to maintain a certain higher level of their indigenous or original or ancestral culture is the East Indian community. And I guess now the question is, how have we as a whole society handled that? Not just the East Indians among us, but the rest of us as well. How have we handled that? Have we embraced multiculturalism in the correct way? Have we tried to be included? When included, take up the invitation? Have we tried to participate, or have we shunned? Have we been able to be respectful? And then have reasonable expectations of being respected? It's an interesting question that I do wonder on some level, if you really ask the question to 10 to 100 different Trinidadians and Tobagonians, you might get 100 different answers. Because on some level, I don't know if we have matured with regards to these conversations enough in order to have them, as opposed to what tends to happen when it comes to situations like this, where some people might allow emotions to override reason. You spend more time just debating on the semantics of the words you're going to use to have the conversation than actually having the conversation. I will say this though. So I understand there's a racial component, and Mr. Donalberger, MP Donalberger brought it up. I can't say that he's wrong outright. I won't say that he's right outright. I just honestly don't know. So I say that to kind of move on from the situation and bring up Choctaw's commentary on the Calypso monarch judging, because he is basically decrying the quality of the judges' training, which is an interesting thing to consider. On what level do we have these formal competitions where we could say that the judges are adequate for the task? I mean, where do you find that? Who do you go to? And they have situations where you have lifelong professionals in an industry, like sport, where arguably it's more objective than subjective, even things like judging performances, like say figure skating or gymnastics or stuff like that. But still, there's controversy with judging. Or when you go to American football, soccer, there's controversy to when the referee uses his discretion or not, his judgment or not. So that's just with sports. Now you put art into it, and things get a lot more subjective and a whole nother level of complicated. But Choctaw is basically saying that, well, he brings this up in the backdrop of some people viewing political compositions being potentially underscored or underappreciated. Now, I think part of the problem with this situation is not the actual reality, but rather how it's perceived, because there's a lot of different breakpoints where it's not necessarily going to be exactly what you think the conspiracy theory is going to be, which is the current government got elected and, you know, they're controlling everything like puppet masters, and all of those calypsos that are anti-UNC, get them out of there. Anti-government, get them out of there. But you see, the thing is, it could be the individual judges have their biases. The biases might not be political. The biases might actually be something else, but it just correlates to underscore or underregard the political compositions. It could be Tuco selecting certain judges for whatever biases they have, which could be political. All of these biases could be political, or they might not. They don't necessarily have to be. Because Chokdas is saying they're recruiting unqualified judges, right, who apparently, according to him, need better education on calypso structure and musicality to prevent inconsistent results, which on some level, that's one of the tricks, where you score something and then maybe you don't like something else even more. But when you start to actually apply some sort of logic to the scoring, it starts to get inconsistent because you're applying a knee-jerk reaction to the situation as opposed to trying to have some sort of objective measure. Your bias will move where the objective measure lies, but the point is you apply that measure equally. Where your biases comes through is your range might be different to someone else's range. Where you see the line of good, it might be easier of a threshold for people to achieve in order to get a good grade, or it might be harder of a threshold. That's fine if you apply it uniformly. So I guess now Tuco finds itself in a situation where it's going to look bad because of the overall situation that will be difficult to explain. And unfortunately, the art form is charged politically, as pointed out by MP Hans de Wiens. To some extent, its roots are based in that. You can't get away from that, which means on some level you have to always be sensitive to that with regards to how you treat setting up the event, selecting the judges, understanding what the criteria is, being able to communicate that criteria to the contestants so that it's clear, to the audience so that no one complains about funny business, but also communicating some level of standards to the judges so they understand the assignment and it's not left up to them, apparently, to determine what it is. And if we want Carnival to be more successful, we can't just do it on a whim or a VAPS or, well, this is how we always did it, so it's fine, and expect good results. Effort has to be put in with regards to things like consistency, with regards to things like proper implementation and execution. Not just to have semi-regular average results, but consistent, good to great results. Yes, of course, you can't help but stumble every now and then. No one's perfect, but the goal should be to strive to be better. Strive to be more professional. And Chokdas is questioning that. He's also questioning how these calypsos are being even written. And on some level, if you have a veteran saying, well, I don't necessarily care for how it seems as though it's not really properly written calypsos in the first place, and it's not really properly being judged in the second place, and those things kind of could go hand in hand in that when the judging seems to be all over the place, the performers are going to do their best to interpret how to get through. Do their best to interpret what they think the event calls for or the judges calls for. But it seems as though instead of having natural incremental evolution of improvement, there's some level of unprofessionalism and laziness in the process somewhere that's dragging it down. And then you get these results which might have nothing to do, the cause of the results might have nothing to do with politics, but given the situation, given the history This is not something that could just be overlooked or brushed aside or underestimated. It is not just a calypso competition. And it's not just a beloved annual cultural tradition. This is a cornerstone of what is uniquely Trinbagonian culture. Because at the end of the day, while whatever culture any one of our people bring from their ancestral lands, while all of it is equally valid, the fact of the matter is, Carnival, Calypso, Steel Band, Limbo, these are things that were technically created here. And it's not meant for only one race or two races. It's meant for the entire country, and thus the entire country's population should consider themselves wardens and protectors of the culture. When you look at America, you see urban culture normally being considered black culture, maybe Latino culture. And then you start to see, hey, country music is white culture. And people kind of get uncomfortable when a non-white person is country music, just like how they got uncomfortable when Eminem came on the scene with regards to rap music. Other countries could, if that's what they want to do, let them do that. If they want to take different aspects of their culture and subcultures and draw racial lines, let them do that. We shouldn't do that. I mean, to some extent, we don't. Diwali is not just an East Indian religious festival anymore. There's a bit more of a national cultural element to it, and that's just one example. Meanwhile, because I don't want to go on too much on this, but like I said, things happen in Carnival. One of the things, I don't necessarily know what to make of it, because this is kind of, I can't remember seeing anything like that, quite like this before. Minister of Public Utilities, apparently, according to one report, uninvited, without permission, took to the stage of Hyatt in order to big up Minister of Works, Jerlyn John. Now, the minister, two things. One, sees it as him just having fun, apparently, and two, is claiming that he wasn't drunk. The thing is, when you have an event, first of all, it's very rude for you to kind of like place yourself in the lineup without permission, because you're undermining the event coordinator, the event planners, the stage manager, if that is true. But also at a fete, like a comedy show, like any other concert, like any other live performance, you're managing the crowd's emotions in order to get them to various stages of enjoyment, managing the peaks and valleys of it, because it can't all be high highs, right? Managing the transitions to ensure that people don't feel bored, that it doesn't feel dragged out, that it doesn't feel unoriginal and uninteresting, even when you have to do certain basic function things like, you know, get somebody to tell a few jokes while you're transitioning from act to act or what have you, while you're changing the setup of the stage. Maybe the DJ is being swapped out for another DJ, etc., etc. There's a lot of basic things where an event could go off the rails. You could lose the crowd. The last thing you need is not to have a bad bit, but to have someone apparently decide to use their position to go on stage and then, to add insult to injury, apparently proceed to carry out a bad bit. Now, the minister says that the boos were in a minority. Yeah, that might be because did the other people cheer, or did they just give you a little bit of grace, generously being silent? That was the extent that they would support you. hoping that this would be over soon. Apparently, if I'm reading it correct, he got one of the DJs to play Marshall's song and he attempted to sing at it and it was bad, and the Prime Minister made a joke about it. And I guess that's an attempt to try to deflect. The real question is, if the actual event coordinators, stage manager, Fed promoters, etc., did not ask Minister Padra to do this, in what world does he think that it was okay? It's not as though he has come out to say that he did get permission. Let me make that clear. So no matter what is said later on, one would think if that's the case, if he was requested or if he asked and was told yes, that would have been said by now. So if I hear something about that later on in line, I don't know if I would be able to believe it. But the opposition, I believe it could be the chief whip. Well, Ronald Mitchell is one of them who weighed on it via social media. You're bringing politics into a carnival fete. You're forcing your way into it. And I don't know, I could be wrong. Yes, the PNM have their own fete. That's their fete. They can do what they want on their fete. When they do whatever political bubble on their stage, if they do so, because I don't think I've ever been to one of their fetes. Apologies, not for the lack of invitations on their part. They know their audience. Their audience is for that. So it's not the same. Whereas Hyatt is a premium general audience. And if you have learned nothing from international entertainment news, let me just school you on one point. Because a lot of people take great offense when there are those who say, I don't want my politics in my entertainment or my sports. And they say, well, why not? Well, are you a bigot against X, Y, or Z? No, it's because there are a lot of people who are not involved, and I will complain that they are not involved enough. But regardless, they choose to want to watch their sports and watch their movie and not deal with the politics at all. They don't even have an opinion. And we've seen private entertainment ventures suffer commercially because somebody had a bright idea to bring politics into the equation. So now, I think one of the issues for the organizers of this fete is that if they have this concern, I think it's legitimate. To what extent did the crowd think that was an approved message by the Minister of Works and Transport? That the fete itself supports what happened on the stage, is in agreement of the happenings on the stage. Meanwhile, I'll try and be quick because our guest is waiting. Finance Minister Tanku, he apparently had a very strong rebuke of the former Finance Minister Bmobile and his comments on the economy at the opposition press conference on Wednesday. I'll be very brief. Reading what I read, Minister Tanku sounds like former Minister Imbert when former Minister Imbert was defending himself to criticisms by the opposition and by other stakeholders in the public. It's kind of ridiculous. It's kind of ridiculous. And he wants to say, where's the phrase? He wants to call Bmobile unpatriotic. All right. If unpatriotic had a name, I mean, if you want to say that MP Imbert, as Minister of Finance, made a lot of mistakes, and some of those mistakes might have been intentional, that's fine. The Auditor General situation was a spectacular mess, and mess is nowhere near strong enough with regards to what I want to say on how bad that was. And that was intentional. Whether he was ignorant to what an audit means, or he was just so accustomed to getting his own way, there was nothing to keep his arrogance in check during that those few weeks or few months or however long that situation happened with regards to some of the worst of the commentary. But to say that it's unpatriotic, Minister Tanku, you are basically doing some of the same things. I mean, he complains about the PNM taking out loans and not utilizing it for I believe, capital expenditure. I want to get the correct quote here. I mean, first of all, he said trying to sabotage our international reputation. No offense, but how you handle the whole US-Venezuela thing really didn't help. That's point number one. Point number two, y'all kind of did that in opposition. So that's pot calling kettle black. He wants to say that Trinidad and Tobago is over for business. I'm not really seeing it. It's a lot of, look how good things are and look how good things will be. That's what former Minister Imbe did as Minister of Finance. He buried Trinidad and Tobago in the billions in new borrowing without using the funds to invest so that he could repay these debts. Like what you all just did? To finance back pay? Is that what you call investment to repay debts? Because all that did was increase the labor bill by $500 million annually on top of having to pay the back pay. So I find this very interesting because it literally sounds to me exactly like former Minister Imbert when he was the minister trying to defend his financial position with things like the IMF report, with things like positive spin on S&P's reports despite the downgrades and Moody's report despite the downgrades, trying to find positive ways to spin the ever-dwindling foreign exchange reserves. And another former Minister of Finance is speaking out against our situation. And listen, it doesn't necessarily have to be Minister Tanku's fault, obviously. He inherited a situation. But right now it seems as though he's basically doing what the last guy did. So to say that improvements are going to be made, I find that extremely hard to believe. He's sounding like the last guy. Because Winston Dukaran is pointing out that the gap between expenditure and revenue is being met by drawdowns on the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and borrowing. It's the same complaints we said with regards to the PNM. We've had a budget, so he's not talking about what the PNM did. He's talking about what Minister Tanku has done recently. The exact same. All right, I was going to play a video, but I'll save that. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome Ashraf. Well, quite a bit to get through, unpack from last week, and of course, get his take on it publicly. Amongst other things, stay tuned. This is Talking About WSN. We'll be right back after this.
It all comes down to this. From the prelims up to the quarterfinals, 8 judges have sat in these chairs and 10 contestants have stood on the other side of this mic. Tonight, we're up to the semi-final round and down to our 6 top scoring stars and a new 3-piece panel of judges. Tonight, you'll see and be the judge of performances by the 6 contestants who have made it to the semis. That's right, you get to vote. So log on and get in on the act at coverstar.live. This is Coverstar, where music history meets its next voice.
Don't stop. As you come in. Long time I see you. This station complete. Ready for children party. Mommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Stephen to see about them. Yeah, total waste. So I supposed to stay home whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about that. You just leave Jada to see about Kia and Kayla? I thought it was your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before you ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, coming soon to WESN Content Capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The home of Caribbean content is growing and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
It all comes down to this. From the prelims up to the quarterfinals, 8 judges have sat in these chairs and 10 contestants have stood on the other side of this mic. Tonight, we're up to the semi-final round and down to our 6 top scoring stars and a new 3-piece panel of judges. Tonight, you'll see and be the judge of performances by the 6 contestants who have made it to the semis. That's right, you get to vote. So log on and get in on the act at coverstar.live. This is Coverstar, where music history meets its next voice.
Don't stop.
And we're back here and talk about the WSND Connect Castle show. Michael Small joined by Ashraf Ali. Oh, the voice sounded a little good, and then I heard a croak. But Ashraf, good morning.
Morning, Sean.
Last talking point before the big event, the biggest event on our national calendar, Carnival. This is what, the second time you're not working a Carnival?
Don't tell people that. Woo! Officially.
You know, on some level, I do wonder if they missed you last week. But we'll get to that in a bit. I wanted to ask, not to beat a dead horse, we were talking about it off air, right? We don't have to go into everything. Minister Padrat's singing career.
That end very shortly. Very, very short. That was a very short career.
Now, here's the thing though. I wanted to ask, do you recall any politician, regardless of party, ever doing anything like that before?
Well, the only other person that I knew made attempted to sing was former minister and former Mr. Young. He did in fact went on stage and do some singing.
Is that the campaign trail?
No, that wasn't the campaign trail. That was an event. He sang in his singing career died very shortly. That was a short-lived career at the same time. I think they should stick to politics because I mean, let me don't go down to the singing career. But honestly speaking, I think that is the only other time. Sometimes you have to be very careful. It may or may not be appropriate in the circumstance and environment that you are in. It's not a political event. First things first, whether or not the call that Minister Julian John was part and parcel of the original body that created the FET is irrelevant in the context because it's not a political FET. It's an event on the Carnival calendar. In fact, true to form, it was ongoing under the PNM administration, yes, so they didn't try to rebrand it. No, it's branded. It's branded in that capacity. Going on the stage in that manner should have been, whether invited or not. Time and place is very important because remember, when you have events of this nature, and I work those events, right? Yes. I actually work the event, so I know what I'm speaking about. The environment that you see there and the energies that is generated in the event when the singers come on. And I'm talking about sometimes when singers come on, or artists I should say, come on, there are certain type of, the vibe changes, the atmosphere because of the type of artist. So you're always trying to keep the artist up and down because the hype is there, and that's the reality because a lot of people like more artists. Some artists have more energies with them and could hype a crowd more than some, right? I mean, that's good. Back in the day when you had a party, when you had a fete, I didn't necessarily like fetes too much. But isn't one of the things that you hated was when anybody got on the mic, the DJ, the hype man, the manager, got on the mic to speak about anything? When the DJ talking, talk less, play more music. Right. The MC, you just there to introduce, don't talk. I don't want to hear nothing else, no smirks, nothing at all. To be fair, because there are times, and I've seen this even in musical theater shows, where people are like, oh, the person is talking too much. It's like, yeah, because the stage might not be set already. So sometimes when they're talking long, it's because there's some logistical issue. Exactly. So there are time and place for certain things, and if the MC knows that he had to buy some time, he could try to buy some time. I mean, it's all about how you're set up, how you're set on the stage arrangement. However, in this circumstance, I'm saying, I don't know if he was invited or otherwise. I know you're indicated that somebody saying that he wasn't. One report said he wasn't. Whether or not he was given a professional courtesy as a minister. I mean, and I am simply... The report says that one of the people for the event, working the event, was in tears over the issue. So what I'm saying is that... So that's a hell of a courtesy. Once you are given professional courtesies in the office that you hold, you have to be very careful in how you carry out that.
Right, because there will be a group of people that will just view this negatively.
Exactly. And you do not want an event of this nature because the promoters put in a lot in this event, because this year, 2026 is a marketing for 2027.
Yeah.
You remember that's how events management starts.
We're not good at marketing, so we need that word of mouth from the previous one.
Yes. So you want to push it. No, you want to experience. Okay, we're going to build an experience for this and this year, because next year and the next event will be better than this one. No, you don't want after this event. The only talking point is Minister Padarat about this event. I mean, that is not a good talking point for anybody. Not that it's Minister Padarat I'm talking about. I'm just saying that
for the event.
You don't want anybody talking about who's somebody who is not part of the part of the event schedule to be spoken about for your next event. What about the other artists that came? Hey, they was
unless it comes across well, which it didn't seem to. My speculation is, because he says not everybody booed. I'm like, yes, the others were giving you some level of support with their silence, but you can't say they cheered.
Sean,
at least maybe I'm wrong.
If I was at that event, I would have joined the booing party. Reason being, not because of you is a minister, not because of that, my political affiliations or that. You are not an artist on the stage. I don't want to hear you. Honestly speaking, I don't want to hear much of what you say.
I mean,
2 minutes.
Haven't a lot of people complain at times. Look, even for Marshall's Fete, I remember there was one year where it seemed as though every fete he was complaining about something going wrong with the DJ or the music. And people were like, why is he complaining and talking so much? And that's Marshall.
Yes.
There's no more popular of an artist than that. So, I mean, now, the last thing I'll say is, and I did bring this up, I can't remember if I brought this up or quite this way to really bring up this point. He claims he wasn't drunk. I would argue, I don't know if that technically make you look better, Mr. Minister, because if that is the act of a sober man, and it doesn't look like the act of a sober man, that's why, on some level, claiming that you were not inebriated while appearing to be intoxicated, I don't know if that's the message you want to put out there.
At the end of the day, I have never heard a drunk man say I was never drunk.
All right, so let's switch gears, because there's something a bit even more direct with your significant previous experience. We're going to start off a little bit with the political first. I'm trying to kind of put two shows together because I wasn't able to do yesterday's show. So I do have a couple clips from the opposition's press conference where, to some extent, it's going to be even more interesting when I ask you about some of the things that they said that I'm not going to show. But we'll start off with what I have to show. It's time to cue this.
For fete promoters when the government clamped down on noise pollution.
Right.
And she's saying that the Diego Martin representatives are now crying foul. So just a response to that, because I know you would have obviously spoken on it earlier. So the Prime Minister is basically saying, 1 minute you were talking about the noise pollution when the government clamped down on it, and I guess those were their responses to the noise pollution, and then you're again raising that. So any response to the Prime Minister?
So firstly, we have to be very careful as a society to know when we are being gaslit. Quite often, the person making an accusation is often guilty of that accusation. The opposition, we never raised noise pollution as this great issue. It was the Prime Minister that said the reason for the ban of these fete venues was because of noise pollution and traffic. Now she's changing the narrative. What our position was from the beginning is these sporting venues and places with many different arteries, and the way to deal with fetes was not by just banning all out, but in consultation, in reasoning with the stakeholders, reasoning with the residents, and coming forth with the best possible solution. That was always our position as the opposition. And I would like to add something very small to this. There are two events that are happening in Diego Martin West this week. And whilst these events are all-inclusives, where the all-inclusive promoters are now bearing a greater cost because of what has been imposed on them from this government, I want you all to know and understand as media that these same event promoters that are under these pressures because of this government's wicked policies, those ministers are having their people come and call these promoters and asking for 20 and 30 comps, you know.
How can you try to throw the blame on the MPs for Diego Martin for that fete in Chagaramas? So traffic was jammed up from Cocorite to Chagaramas from midnight to 6 p.m. the following day. 18 hours. Because somebody in authority approved that fete in that location. The point Mr. Devines is making should not be lost. You look at any other country in the world. Fetes, concerts are held in sporting arenas. They're built for that. They have parking facilities built for that. They're put in locations where you have more than one access route in and out. Somebody in government made the decision to put 17,000 people in what is called a cul-de-sac, a dead end. And it is, I don't know what word I could use, I just vex. How the Prime Minister could blame we MPs in Diego Martin for that foolishness when it is a government minister or some government official that placed that concert down there.
Now, before we get on the venue choice, right, because I have another clip that will speak to that, right? I wanted to look at two things here. One, the public relations response to the whole situation. Because when I read the Prime Minister's initial response, I was like, hold on. I understand, Prime Minister, your point where she said, well, they're being hypocritical now. Well, you was defending the facts before, but now you're saying it's an issue. I was like, hold up, no. Okay, I could agree with that they were defending one situation and now blaming another. But the fact of the matter is, the Prime Minister, in my opinion, at the very least, also did it in reverse, where she was blaming the previous situation, and that's why they kind of axed it, and somehow this large event, because to me 17,000 people for a fete, that's not a small fete. I think I've only ever been to one fete that could come within that realm of numbers. I went to one Cast Tuesday in my life, right? I've never been to an event that large before or since. With regards to how the messaging has been handled, and then also, I wanted to ask, as far as you're aware, how many people can the whole Chagaramas area handle? Because I think somebody basically said in the past, they've had as much as 20,000 people on the Western Peninsula. But I do wonder if the explanation for why it didn't have the same level of issues was in part because it wasn't one event, where all of the people congregated to one specific location, and then when it's time to go, they're all trying to go at the same time, as opposed to multiple events that might have been a bit more manageable because it's not the timing and everything is not just concentrated into one situation. So what do you make about those two aspects of it first?
Well, firstly, the irony behind the politics of these events is startling.
I mean, I wonder if Mr. Parra got a complimentary to the Hyatt line.
Yeah, right. I listened to the two clips, and they have some valuable points that they raise when it comes to the venues. But I'm not going to make it about politics, because they want to use politics, so they go right ahead and use politics. Yeah. They're entitled to. Trinidad and Tobago, and I want the minister, I want the MP, Minister MP input to understand that there is no venue in Trinidad and Tobago, no sporting facility that in Trinidad and Tobago was built to host anything else except sports.
Okay.
There's none. Right? So I don't know, because if you want to compare Trinidad and Tobago sporting facilities to other stadiums that is built for events, they build for events, not only sporting events, but for events. Wembley Stadium, you talk about Wembley Stadium, talk about the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, where I was there for the Super Bowl. It wasn't built for the Super Bowl alone. It was built for other events because it had capacity. It had other infrastructure put in place. Let us be realistic in Trinidad and Tobago. The only venue that has sufficient capacity in and around it in Trinidad and Tobago is the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. That is the only venue in Trinidad and Tobago that has sufficient capacity. The Brian Lara Cricket Academy can hold almost 16 to 17, 18, about 17 to 18,000 persons inside of the venue. And that's when we have CPL's finals. That's the capacity inside. The issue has not been venue capacity. It has never been venue capacity. It has to deal with the issue of traffic management and how our culture is when we go into events.
All right, but before we get, because I wanted to save that part of the conversation for later. With regards to this thing happened, right? And I'm not really hearing a lot from the government with regards to what went wrong. Now, you're hearing some stuff from the Minister of Homeland Security and the police, yes. But before we get at the Prime Minister, basically, whatever means of communication, I don't think it was audiovisual, was basically to say, well, look how hypocritical the PNM MPs are. And I'm like, why are you spending time on that, regardless of...
Listen, and I'm saying because of the government decision to move or ban FETs at state facilities. Hold on here. Wait. I come in here. I go in here. State facilities or UDICOT facilities, as they say, sorry, UDICOT owned facilities. You may be careful with my words.
Right.
It was UDICOT facilities. Good? Which would have been the stadiums, right? All the stadiums that we have to use. Now, the big question is, and that is for who have to answer that question, whatever it is. The police, I want to make it abundantly clear, the police don't choose venues.
Right.
The promoters choose the venues. The promoters goes to the court, make an application for when they want the FET. The application goes to the court. The police does the investigation to determine the security of the arrangements and provide the necessary support services. That is the investigation that the police does for it to get their approvals for the license to hold the FET. The police does not choose venues. The question is, who gave permission for that venue to be used?
Because one of the things that I don't have on the clips, because I didn't mean for them to be played with you, so I wanted to have this part of the conversation with you. They bring up road traffic management and utilization of national security resources, but I am not too sure that the deficiency was there, right? It seems as though so many people leaving the venue were drunk, there were accidents which compounded the issue more than one, right? But also I do wonder on some level, really, how much better could you manage a one road in, one road out situation? So to some extent, Mr. Imbit's argument that it's a cul-de-sac actually kind of takes the wind out of the sails of anyone wanting to say, well, the police didn't do their job.
Well,
if you want to say that road traffic management includes selecting a venue in the first place and the number of people.
How all of a sudden, in 2026, the issues of events happening in the Chaguaramas area is a talking point.
Right.
You know why it becomes a talking point? Because the current administration put a ban on other events, venues. Hold on.
Have we ever gotten a result like that in quite some time?
There has always been an issue with events. There were multiple events taking place in Chaguaramas coming closer.
Yes.
Sometimes 3 or 4 events on the said night.
Yes.
There's always been an issue with traffic. Always.
Is it usually that bad?
It is bad. It is bad. It is as bad as that.
Okay.
The issue with it is, or should I say, why it doesn't make the airplay, because this is politics now. This is politics. Pure and simple, it is politics about the events. So let's try to dance it around. It's politics being played. But the issue is that location where we have venues down there that host events.
Yeah.
When you have an event that it takes place at O2 Park, where is the parking facility for O2 Park? And I could ask anybody, and even the minister, the members and the members for those areas. Who is the MP for Chaguaramas?
Well, I mean, the MP doesn't really have much say in situations like this.
But who's part of the regional, the corporate Digicel Regional Corporation for Chaguaramas? So I'm just showing. Let's stop putting blame on who. Let's start pushing the blame.
Yeah, but
the fact of the matter is that the venue there, there's an accommodation that has to be made with people in Chaguaramas.
Right.
Right. Where you have events taking place. Now what is happening is about time and place. Those other events that take place in Chaguaramas are night events. Majority are night events.
Mm-hmm.
Less traffic on the road.
Yeah.
Less residents of the area will be on the road, utilizing the road. This particular event, it's a Juve fete that ends during the day, which is business hours and everything like that, and it starts leading into the night with and it's not on a weekday at the same time. I'm sorry, a weekend or anything like that. We know how Carnival is, but it's a Juve event. Furthermore, you will always get that amount of traffic. Police can only manage so much, because in order to manage an event of that nature, the amount of resources, not at the event you would need. You would need management from the heliport all the way down to Cocorite on the roads, because what you want is a constant flow, because I agree, it is a cul-de-sac. It's one way in, one way out. I agree with the minister.
Former minister,
sorry. Right? So I agree. But at the end of the day, it doesn't mean it could not have been managed. How it was managed?
Have there been events of that size?
It never had an event of that size
and that nature
on one occasion. Reason being, let me just give you this. I did some research on it before I come. Because this particular type of event, stink and dirty. Notwithstanding, I don't like the word, but how they promote the event, the name of the event, but that is not for me. That is for the promoters, right? It's a brand name for them. In 2001, it was supposed to be held. It was cancelled because we was in COVID.
Right.
Good. In 2002.
You mean 2021, 2022?
Sorry. 2021. 2001. In 2022, it was held at the Casey Crawford Stadium car park. Yes, it was held at the stadium car park. A lot of traffic, it was worse.
Right.
But you know what happened? It was not a one way in, one way out. All the arteries, Tragrit Road, Aripita Avenue, Ryson Road, all the way down Audrey Jeffrey Survey was traffic that morning.
Right.
Was there a cry about noise pollution at that point in time? Yes, there was. The residents of Woodbrook was complaining. Did anybody address it? No, they didn't. Hold on. Let me go again. In 2023, it went to Brian Lara. Traffic? Yes, there was traffic on the highway. Chaos. It was chaos. There was incidents in 2023 where shooting incidents took place in 2023 along the highway. However, because of the fact that the venue, the car park had capacity, it was held in the car park, not in the stadium, it was held in the car park.
Yeah.
Car park had capacity. They were parking all on the highway. But because it was on that area, it didn't have much issues for the traveling public, because only in the morning when the event finished, level of alcoholism, type of driving, people even come from quite in the south to head, you had some issues with it. But that venue worked for that extent. There were some issues. Now the promoters chose to go in 2024 at the Queen's Park Savannah. I was there. I was there. It was chaos.
Stick up in on that. Stick up in on that. I want to run the other clip. This might be a somewhat redundant, but let's run the other clip because MB Devines kind of goes a little bit more in depth with the point. This is actually before. That clip was questions. The previous clip was questions in the question and answer segment after. This is the initial presentation. Let's run it.
So in November 2025, according to a Trinidad Guardian article, and here's the minister's title, Minister of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, Kennedy Swarat Singh, instructed the Chaguaramas Development Authority to work with the Ministry of Culture to create spaces for FETs in response to events being halted in the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. We all know when this venue ban was instituted, we as the People's National Movement, we as the opposition signaled it was a horrible idea to move events to Chaguaramas. Reason being, sporting venues are made for mass amounts of people. It is not a secret. To move an event with 17,000 people to a venue where there's one way out, or a location rather, where there's one way in and one way out, it was always going to result in disaster, regardless of whatever traffic plan may have been put in place by the promoters and by the government. It was always going to end with inconvenience for residents. And we said that from the start when this statement was made by the Minister of, again, Planning. We signaled very early it was a bad plan. Now, at the heliport, we know the heliport is a military detention center. And while some people may go around saying that it's a norm for there to be events, fetes, festivals at military facilities, not at a detention center. So that is something to note. FET was allowed at a detention center authorized by the government, and we have government representatives saying and speaking as though it is the promoter's fault for having the event at that venue, when the promoter was just working within the narrow confines set by the government and their policies. And they're saying that it was managed by a comprehensive police plan. Minister of Homeland Security, Roger Alexander, told one media house that based on police advice, he will recommend that the FET be banned from Chaguaramas. But Minister Roger Alexander, it is your Minister of Planning that planned for it to be in Chaguaramas. Again, sometimes we question whether or not this government's cabinet actually meets. Clearly, there's some serious miscommunication within their ranks. WhatsApp group does not exist. The minister said over 100 officers were deployed, yet he admitted the plan failed because of the sheer volume of people and the narrow access route. He also highlighted that it was moved from Brian Lara Cricket Academy because of the traffic problem. So you move an event from a space with 5 different arteries to a space with one crucial artery. According to Jesse James, president of the Marine Services Association of Trinidad and Tobago, at least 40 businesses were forced to shut down on Saturday because of the snarl in traffic. Residents were trapped in their homes, essential services were blocked. Business owners are now telling us they plan to close annually from the Friday before Carnival straight through to Tuesday because the uncertainty and financial losses are too great. We are effectively killing commerce in Chaguaramas during the time it should be thriving. Again, I point you to the initial statement was made by the Minister of Planning. What is this government's plan for Trinidad and Tobago? What is this government's plan for the events that generate money for the economy and economic activity? When you look at an event like the event that happened Saturday morning, you'd see over 300 people are hired, whether it be bar owners, security staff, performers, entertainers, sound system, even staff that would clean up after the event is finished. What is the government's plan? And then we have the Prime Minister coming after that to say the people from Diego Martin should look to their councillors and MPs for the reason for this traffic. I would like to remind the Prime Minister today, she's not the Prime Minister of Siparia or Princetown. She's the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And in the words of full-blown Prime Minister, the responsibility is respectfully yours. It does not lie on the MPs or the councillors. We did not set the policy to push as many feds as possible to Chaguaramas. I go back. Minister of Planning. Planning is the minister's role. So what is the real plan?
Politics.
Well, I mean, here's
so
the thing.
So that's pure politics. I'm making it clear that it's politics playing there. The reality of this whole situation, it is not about the politics. It's about management of major events. We in Trinidad and Tobago take this too lightly.
Just overall?
Overall.
But you see, ironically, I think that supports the point that he made, right? Because I do wonder if, now he's calling out the Minister of Planning. I wouldn't necessarily blame the Minister of Planning, right? I will blame the overall planning of this situation in that you cancel some venues, and then a member of the government, I think the Minister of Planning is basically trying to compensate for the situation, right? So the fete doesn't get cancelled. Unfortunately, I don't necessarily know if he is necessarily an expert on how to manage these things, and he puts a $17,000 Juve fete smack dab in the middle of Chaguaramas as opposed to...
So Chaguaramas and the CDA, are they responsible for the heliport?
I would assume not.
Exactly. That falls under security.
Yes.
National security, under the umbrella of national security. I am talking about the minister, but it falls under that state facility. My question is, why was that venue used?
Right.
Right? It's a good space. It has good security arrangements that can be put in place, but the venue, but that venue itself, I am saying, should, because of what it is, it should not have been used. That is my opinion.
Right. If the crowd was smaller, maybe it would have been easier, or just in general, because of the national security venue,
yes,
it should not have been used.
It should not have been used.
No, some people say there have been fetes on Tetron.
But that is under the directives of the Chief of Defense Staff.
Right.
Right?
Right.
All I'm simply saying is that it should not have been used for this type of event.
Now, let's go back. You were going to talk about when this party last year was around the Savannah. Right. What did that look like?
Chaos. With all the avenues and all the arteries we had in and around the Savannah, there was not enough parking. There was tremendous amount of traffic in and around.
Right.
Right?
Because, I mean, just with the flavor, I'm saying the Savannah is probably at capacity.
And it's smack in the middle of, when you look at the business hub, we have the Prime Minister's residence,
Yes.
you have the President And so you have other venues taken, other areas taken that is there right there that should not be placed in under that risk of an event like this, because when you have traffic gridlock and all kinds of that.
Port of Spain General Hospital, because the traffic does extend down to at least the first or second side street next to the hospital.
Notwithstanding the issues of noise pollution in and around the area, which also has always been an issue with respect to that. Notwithstanding that, I am simply saying this. There are certain type of events that has to be considered outside of certain areas. This particular event, and I'm not saying anything, I have anything against the promoters or the type of the event, but I'm just showing you that this type of event.
It's not the event per se, it's just the sheer size and scale of it
these are what you have to consider. The type of individuals that will be in the event, the participants. Right? What the event connotates?
In the sense of this is party goers. This is not retirees going to see an opera concert.
This is a Juve party.
Right.
One of the biggest Juve parties.
Not just a normal carnival fest,
no,
a Juve party.
This is a Juve party. This is a Juve party. This is a combination of both. A Juve party outside of, or I should say the precursor to the original Carnival Juve. Is a precursor to it.
Right, because normally they would just be on the streets and it's fine.
So, but you're confining this Juve party to a particular location.
No, I wanted to, as you say that, I wanted to make it clear because we were clarifying things while the video is running. When you say that the events are not purpose-built, the stadiums are not purpose-built for events, it's not that they're unsuitable for events.
No.
But it wasn't as though planning was done to say, and when we have this Carnival Fete, this is how we'll manage things, and this is how we build it to manage Carnival Fete. It's an open space. It's better located than certain venues in Chaguaramas for accessibility. But I think this is maybe a bit too granular for some people. They're not necessarily going this deep. There's nothing about it that is said to be purposefully designed to handle something like this.
No, it is not.
You're taking something that was designed for a different purpose, just on the convenience of its size, to say, well, it's one of the better options, if not the best option, to handle an event like this.
So we have the...
Not because it was designed to do so specifically.
So then we have the facility in Cuba, the aquatic center.
Right.
Cycling center. And what stadium we have there? Home of football?
Oh, gosh. You know, I don't even...
You understand what I'm saying, right?
I understand what you're saying, but I can't even remember that sporting facility, to be honest.
Yeah. So.
But I'll say this, though. When you said that, and I've seen this before, when they had events at the Cricket Academy, and it was in the parking lot, in my mind, I'm like, why is it in the parking lot? Shouldn't the parking lot be for parking? Unless the event is so small where you can have the parking and the event.
So the how I should say, the value of the Brian Lara Cricket Academy outside of the venue, the internal venue itself, right? Because it's a nice stadium, right? And it could use for much more than just for cricket when we have cricket or when we have other events. And I'm simply saying that it's about time we start to look at these venues to be utilized when taking into consideration traffic issues, noise pollution. I have no problem with people making an issue with noise. Noise pollution is in fact a major issue. But let's be real. How can we have carnival events? And this is where I will say that, are we really understanding what carnival is about? It's a business of carnival. It's the business of carnival now. It's promoting a lot of different things. All these events is the lead up to Carnival Monday and Tuesday on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have all these events,
it's not the same.
It will not be the same because people come here to experience multiple events leading up to Carnival Monday.
As far as you're aware, there are foreigners apparently that come in and diaspora for a month in advance, yes?
Exactly. They book their tickets and they come into Trinidad 2 weeks in advance because they want to go to these fetes leading up to Carnival.
Now, ironically, it seems as though the two of the worst situations with this particular event happen once you put on civilian clothes full time.
No, I have been lobbying silently, and when I sit in these meetings and explaining that these are the consequences that we take in with so there's a lot of planning.
Right, so
there's a lot of planning, you know.
Is there, because I guess on some level, because to me, I would have hoped maybe, do we have, what's the most remote stadium that we have? And I guess maybe that's why you pointed to Couva. But maybe we shouldn't do these things in the middle of suburban and urban population centers, because some people might not appreciate Carnage as being a population center, but it is. And yes, it might be smaller than some, but the point is it's restricted to one road, exactly. So that makes it worse.
So the heliport is a good space. It has space. Square footage, fair enough. But when you look at it, it is not about the venue alone. When you're planning for major events, and they keep harping on the word planning and planning, the minister doesn't plan for these events.
Which minister are you talking about?
The
minister planning, yeah.
That's planning for the...
Although if he authorized it, he was involved.
Authorized, what the authorization would have been is that to allow CDA to give permissions for certain type of events. CDA is the one that have to give permission for any other event happening down that area.
Right.
Right? It means that you'll be a little more flexible. You have to be a more flexible type of events taking place. This is one of the time that probably because of the ban, they were much more flexible with respect to that event.
And also things were kind of moving at an accelerated pace, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. So given the person's permission to have this event there was not the issue. That is not the issue in my book. The facility itself or the space can accommodate the 17,000 persons.
Mm-hmm.
The event itself, understanding the history of this event and what this event brings to the table is where we have to start to consider. Type of persons come in, how much participants that you get in the event. The event goes 15,000 plus, right? It builds. When you look at the history from Brian Lara to the Queen's Park Savannah, 15,000 plus persons attend or attend the event. When you take all of that and put that into the culture of Trinidad and Tobago, that is very important now. The culture of Trinidad and Tobago, persons, they don't travel. They don't shuttle with buses. They don't want shuttle, they want shuttle service. Everybody wants to drive a car.
Yeah.
Let's say I take 5 persons out of the 15,000, and just for maths purposes, right?
So 5 in a car.
5 in a car, 15,000 divided by 3. How much did I now? 3,000?
Yeah.
That's 3,000 additional cars that is going at the same time, trying to reach there at the same time, because trains don't come early. Gates open at a particular time, everybody want to reach that time. And then 3,000 additional cars together with the normal...
I would argue underselling it. It's probably closer to 6,000 to 9,000.
I'm just using
simple
figure. I'm just giving a full capacity of a car.
Yeah.
Right? We know that it's going to happen because some of them 2 or 3. So just if you use just full capacity, that's 3,000. That's 3,000 plus. When you put 3,000 cars going to the area by itself, understanding already that's a one way in, one way out. And many of the persons who go there stopping on the way because they want to make sure they have a little top up before they go inside the event. They stop on all the bars going headed in.
Ironically, one of the issues with, and this is why when Ashraf says the type of people, I don't think he means short, tall, gender, race, but this is a Juve fete. So it's Juve revelers.
Juve revelers.
Ironically, one of the things that could have helped with a situation like this normally would be public transportation. But when it's Juve people, I don't know if you want all of that mud and paint in your public transportation system.
So that is where I am saying there has to be some consideration for any of the type of or fetes that we are having in these areas coming around around Carnival time. It's about proper planning for these areas, and understanding that you can plan for everything, but there will always have some hiccups. Traffic is one of the hiccups that you will always have. Because you really cannot corral persons in the way that you would like them, because you do not know out of the 3,000 persons, I'm just using the vehicles, the 3,000 vehicles, who is actually going to that fete. You have persons who may not be going to the fete, they may go into the boardwalk to Lime on that night, who choose to go down, if a person choose to go down on that
because
time.
there are multiple things happening and businesses.
Exactly.
Now, when you said culture, I mean, I guess on part of it, is it, we're kind of guilty in that not only is it that the population will do what they want to do, they want to drive, they'll drive, right? But then now on some level, too many people making decisions are not willing to kind of make certain decisions, go far enough with certain measures to say, listen, we have to find the parking, right? We have to spell it out, right? We have to ensure there's enough space. We have to enforce no parking in certain areas. Because, listen, I'll say this with regards to Fete Royale, is it QRC's Fete?
You know where parking was, you know where persons were parking?
They manage their parking situation pretty reasonably,
Sean,
I would think. But it's not, I don't know if it's the same scale.
All the way down to O2, there was vehicles parked on the road for that effect. All on the side streets going to Macrape, there were vehicles parked for that fete.
It's been a while since I've driven there, so I can't remember how far O2 is from the heliport.
So you had...
But I think that's pretty far because the heliport is near the end, right?
Yes. So you had CDA overwhelmed. The CDA within that area actually was overwhelmed dealing with those other areas too. And then you had issues where you had persons coming in on boats using pirogues to come to the event. That's a risk by itself.
Yes, if you're drunk. I will say this though, one of the things that I now thought of is, imagine if something happened and there's a national security emergency in the Red House, and they're like, call the army, but the army is behind an 18-hour traffic jam.
So you understand the dynamics between
We have San Fernando on the line. We'll continue the conversation. San Fernando, good morning, you're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning, sir.
I want to start with Mr. Padarat and Mr. Padarat's abuse of his
singing career?
Privilege. Politicians been doing that since 1962. So that is no big deal. They make a fool of themselves sometimes. So I don't see that a storm in a teacup. I want to go to this issue with you, Mr. Ali, talking about this decision to keep that fete in Chagaramas. This traffic situation is nothing new, and you would know that, Mr. Ali.
Mm-hmm.
I have been, what do you call this thing? They used to have, Mr. Ali, remember, insomnia.
Yes.
There was one year they had insomnia in O2 Park, and they had across the road at Anchorage, they had another fete there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was so, the traffic was so ridiculous. I left, my wife and I left San Fernando because we said we're leaving early because we know we're going to have traffic. We left San Fernando, we left our house at 10 p.m. I did not reach into Chagaramas until 3:30 a.m. And it only took us, let's say, almost an hour to reach from San Fernando to West Mall. And the rest of the time we spent in traffic from West Mall to reach Chagaramas, to park on Macrape Road.
Exactly.
So this is nothing new. This is nothing new. I think what not been taken into consideration is we have a police service that just come out of several SOEs, and we're not taking into consideration they might have some fatigue in the police service right now, fatigue with officers. I think that should be seriously considered with in terms of the situation. Okay, it happened because we have an issue where the government started it because the bans fits in Unicode facilities, and this size of this fit had to find a venue. Yeah. They had to find a venue. So it was a lot of things coalesced that caused, eventually ended up in the traffic situation. And I do believe Mr. Imbert and Mr. Devines on the PNM side, while they may have good points, they're just playing politics with Carnival, as far as I see. They're just playing politics with Carnival. So I don't think this is any big situation. I want to say something quickly to Sean about 3 issues with three ministers. Philip Alexander went up in what they call it, Greenville, with an issue with a resident there. And Mr. Alexander went out a file and was talking about the violations of that particular individual and what they intend to do. Mr. Alexander talking about this fete, and we're not going to have it there anymore. And Ms. John, with respect to the Sea Bridge. Those are 3 politicians on the government side, 3 ministers. It is time in Trinidad and Tobago that we stop seeing ministers taking on the responsibility that the public servants who are hired to do those jobs do. These people need to be their feet need to be put to the fire. And I understand the ministers coming out, but it's time to let the people who are responsible. Mr. Alexander had no right to be there because there are people in the agency that are not doing their job. Ms. John have no right to be coming and talking about the Sea Bridge all the time. And there's the Port Authority and the Inter-Island Ferry Service. We're not hearing those. Let those people come to the forefront and speak to the situation. They are the ones getting paid. So it is time that these individuals within who are getting paid by the state to do their job, let them come out and put them in the front. I understand the ministers have the role, but manage from the back and let these people crack the whip and let these people start to do their jobs. Have a good weekend, gentlemen, and a safe one.
Thank you, Paul. On that last point, I'll just say quickly, sometimes the politicians do sideline. Sometimes the people who are paid to do the job are not capable. Just look at the Paria situation. The board fumbled, the Paria itself fumbled the communication. It was, I think, by Saturday, then Minister Young had to come and speak publicly.
But isn't this the standard that we keep on setting? That everything that goes wrong under the portfolios where the ministers have to manage, they want the ministers to answer questions when the ministers are not the ones supposed to be answering, because we do have public servants.
Well, there are times when they have to answer, but not initially.
Exactly. So I won't say so. But if the ministers...
no, but part of the problem is if they're politically appointed, at times they're not capable of handling that. So they're there to collect a check and fill a seat.
So I agree with San Fernando in the context that...
Well, yes.
I agree with in the context that the public servants who are there, who has those responsibilities, have to answer some questions. But we as a country, we keep asking for the ministers to answer questions. So why?
It's not too dissimilar to we need the MP to fix the road. It's like it's not the MP to fix the road. It's local government to fix the road.
Local government to fix the road. And I'm saying this. So Mr. Alexander is taking on some issues that he should not be taking on.
This is Homeland Security,
Alexander.
Well, hold on that. We don't have a caller waiting. Caller, good morning. Are you there?
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
No, this is a quick call. Just to remind you and Hashraf that we had another singing minister, one named Dan Rat Singh. He used to sing all about on platform and as a minister and so. So that's just a quick reminder.
Okay. Thank you, caller.
We don't need.
Oh, sorry for that.
We don't know you got cut off.
Yes, no, I think they heard me say thank you, and it seemed like the point was finished. And I'm very sorry. Here's the thing, though. I'm not too sure if that situation is similar to the Minister Padarat situation.
But I think he used to sing a little better. So.
Right, but also I think he might have been singing in a more formal, entertaining capacity. Yes. But with regards, because Mr. San Fernando brought it up, so I'll just say this quick. In the past, they didn't have social media. and mobile cell phones that could take high definition video and be uploaded almost immediately.
Immediately, true.
Right? So that's the thing. This is now, it's, Mr. Santana, you're not wrong, but for politicians, they need to understand. Because I'm tired of people saying, well, so-and-so is not fair. On some level, public life is not fair. Just ask however many celebrities, is their life fair? The answer is no. People don't treat them fairly. And politicians and the heads of various state entities and even private corporations need to understand that. It's not always going to be fair. So politicians need to not appear drunk, claiming that they're not drunk, interrupting a non-political event, and then maybe taking umbrage with how the public responds to that when leaked video comes out of what they were doing, which might not have happened 30 years ago, obviously. Yeah. We do have a caller on the line. Caller, Kova. Good morning. You on here?
Good morning, Sean. Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Ali.
Good morning, sir.
I need to agree with Mr. San Fernando. Read the issue with Mr. Parra. Give me a break. That's much to do about nothing. Okay, that's one. Two, I listened to Mr. Levine, but I didn't listen to Mr. Imwood, because I don't listen to Mr. Imwood. I've had enough of Mr. Imwood. But Mr. Levine, as a member of the PNM, should not mention anything about noise pollution. The PNM has ignored noise pollution. As a matter of fact, when the former Prime Minister said, when he was announcing the removal of the restrictions for COVID, and he made that callous statement that loud music cannot be played, I mean, he just made it worse there. And it showed quite clearly that they don't give a damn about noise pollution. For whatever reason, you could forget them. Okay? But, you know, and I keep telling you, Sean, all this time, when I talk about a political party being in office for so long, you all miss the point. Carnival has grown over the years. The bands have gotten bigger, the parties have gotten larger, the noise has gotten louder because the electronic equipment has improved over the years with the computer, with the age of computer and whatnot. This is the next thing people don't seem to be aware. That is where the noise pollution became a problem because of the increase in the efficiency of electronic equipment, which as computer came on the scene. Nonetheless, we have to understand this is the problem with our culture. If we are doing something since 1970, in 2025 we want to be doing it the same way. This is one of the major problems with Trinidad and Tobago, right? This lack of being proactive. The PNM has been in power, as I keep saying, 54 years. The PNM should have realized a long time ago that they need to upgrade their thinking, make special venues for these parties and whatnot, but you're not doing anything about it, and then you're coming out to criticize this government for things you should have done years ago. You had the time and the money. I keep saying that. All the problems that Trinidad and Tobago today started under their tenure. They have had the time and the money to fix all these things. So I don't want to hear them criticizing anybody else. I'm not saying that the UNC is perfect or the UNC will get everything right. But I'm saying to hear these people talk, I'm listening to Hans Levine mention noise pollution.
Caller. I'm going to have to ask you to stop there. The point he made was that they were never debating the issue of noise pollution. So now you are putting words into his mouth because he did not say that noise pollution is not a problem. He said that's not what they were talking about. He literally made that point.
I did not say that he said it's not a problem. No. I'm just saying that no PNM person should mention it because the PNM
he didn't mention it.
Who sat down
he only mentioned it. Caller, the point that he was making was that when it was brought up, he was making the point that originally we weren't talking about noise pollution and we were not trying to debate noise pollution. He is doing what you want him to do.
You lost me there.
He was not speaking about noise pollution. He was not justifying noise pollution. He was not utilizing noise pollution as a relevant point in what he was saying. All he did when he mentioned noise pollution was to say they were never debating or discussing that.
Yes, but Sean, I am simply saying they shouldn't mention it at all. I think you
right, but you're missing you're missing the point. You're missing the point. He's not.
Okay.
He should never mention that. What does that mean? What does that mean? He is mentioning it to say that they were not trying to justify the noise pollution situation or to discredit the noise pollution situation, because that was separate to what they were talking about. And this issue, technically, the issue of the traffic management is separate to the noise pollution issue. Yes, they are revolving around the same events, so you can have the discussion at the same time, but noise pollution does not make traffic management better or worse inherently or directly.
Yes. I hear you.
So
I hear you.
I understand.
But I still feel you missing my point. But I'll leave it there. I'll say what I have to say. I'll leave it there.
Okay.
No problem.
Because I think...
Thank you.
Thank you, Kola. I think the point is, and this is the point I made, it's fine if you want to deal with noise pollution. You said noise pollution is an issue on this show, right? And the point I tried to make when I was responding to the Prime Minister's comments is, at the end of the day, because I'll agree in the sense of, if they were defending the status quo, and I said this, I think, on Tuesday, right? Yes, you could say it's hypocritical that they were defending the status quo, right? But then now complaining about what happened. But on some level, I also appreciate Mr. Devine's point where it's like, look, we were not necessarily saying that the noise pollution was an issue. We were just saying that these, at least on the paper, are the most appropriate venues for some of these events because of capacity and traffic access, right? Now, the thing is, I don't think the last PNL administration, I could blame a lot with regards to the Dr. throughout the administration. I don't think they had the extra capital lying around to make new venues to deal with this situation, right? They say that we're going to open up some other place, if that's what the caller was saying, which I interpreted that to be, but I'm not going to limit him to that. So I don't necessarily know what the solution could have been that would have been like a very direct solution to this issue that, first of all, this government could do, or the previous one. No, the direct solution would be find someplace really far, build a lot of highway to that location, build a big venue for Carnival Fets and say, there you go, Fets. But that takes money that we haven't had for like the last 15 years.
And when is
or 12 years.
And how much for the year, how much time for the year we're going to use it?
Well, that's the thing, right?
So
I do think though that we could potentially use it every weekend.
So that is what I'm saying. When I said that the facilities, sporting facilities, were not built for purpose, for other purposes other than sporting events, I am not saying it cannot be utilized. Because we do it.
To emphasize that point, when you see a Taylor Swift concert, it's not just the grounds. People are all in the stands. The parking lot is used for parking. Parking lot is not used for the stage.
Yes.
The stage is on the grounds, right? They utilize the stands and the ground for seating.
But Sean,
when you have a Juve party, I don't think you want...
can't use stands.
You can't use stands.
It all depends. It all depends on specific aspects of the event planning, the nature of this event. A Taylor Swift concert is not as Juve for at Trinidad and Tobago Juve. Let me be clear. At Trinidad and Tobago Juve, not anybody else Juve is Trinidad and Tobago Juve.
Yeah, right? Because even Mardi Gras with giving out the beads, it's not the same thing as dumping paint or chocolate or whatever else, or mud or whatever.
So when we make comparisons to other countries, we can't make reasonable comparisons because they does not have what we have, our unique type of activities. You want to have so this is a Juve Fete.
Yeah.
Juve Fete means that people want to be moving around, have a space to move in and out because it's talking about paint and it's paint and oils and everything. As I say, it's stink and dirty, and persons behave how they want to behave in that environment.
Yeah, you literally do not want your stands to have people with stink and dirty.
But at the same time, it's risky putting those individuals in stands because you may have falls, right? And you may end up with, it could end up in fatalities.
To be fair, sporting events, some concerts will have alcohol. I'm going on the whole, yes, the movement, but also just stink and dirty up the stands.
That might be
that's a very quick way to have your stadium used up.
Yeah, so it might be one of the aspects of it. But these type of events need space. It needs square footage for persons to be on.
Here's my thing. It's not that there haven't been traffic in Chaguaramas before. I just wonder how often is it quite this severe?
And this is what I'm saying, because
it shouldn't be there. For this one, this specific one.
So this one, I am saying, is pure politics, case closed. Because there has been issues with traffic for other events in Chaguaramas. It was worse than this.
Worse than this?
It was worse, but because I'm saying it is worse, why you keep jumping on your beating up? You want to beat up on the police. The police didn't manage traffic. Anyway, we have a caller, so let me take the caller first.
Yeah, again, I do think you're asking a lot from the police to kind of, because they're kind of dealing with it.
It's too much.
When they're already in a disadvantaged situation. We have a call on the line. Caller, good morning.
Hello, morning.
Morning.
I'm listening to the conversation, and several things jumped out at me within the conversation. And, you know, I just want to draw your mind back to when there's cricket in that Branlara Stadium, there's always an issue with traffic. There has always been an issue with parking, people parking on the highway. There have always been issues whenever there's a big event at that Branlara Stadium car park in the context of when they started this party thing. But over the years, they have learned to manage it properly, because there are some people who are not aware of different arteries that could take them out of the Branlara Stadium to go to Princestown, to go to Williamsville, to go to San Fernando, and to go to Port of Spain.
So true.
So the traffic management, the police started to do a very good job with traffic management, even for cricket, when there's cricket, because yes, there may be a little traffic, but when the police start to get a hang of it, the traffic disintegrates in a very short space of time. And the noise pollution aspect of it, really and truly, I live Pleasantville. And I used to hear the parties and stuff in the Branlara Stadium at the beginning of when these events started to happen there. Coming down, like two years ago, the music, I was wondering, when you hear that there's an event at the Lara car park, you're wondering, is there really an event there? Because you're not hearing anything because of how they started to position the speakers. And based on how they position the line-array speakers, it goes straight one direction. Right. So taking all of that into consideration, I said, well, okay, that's interesting. How they started to manage, and as it evolved, they started to manage it very, very differently. So my thing was, why would you remove something that was starting to at least appear to be being managed properly, to have it to start all over again with chaos? You know, that just didn't make any sense to me. Because at the end of the day, I have a daughter and I have a son, and my nephews and nieces, they go to those events. And they never reached home until after 6 the afternoon, Minister 7. And I was frightened, I was worried, I thought they got in an accident. I want to know what's going on, not knowing that because of this situation. I think that, and the police was given, I think the Homeland Security Minister would have taken the advice to not have anything like that down there again. Maybe so, but somebody needs to sit down and manage this thing properly, because it's getting really out of hand. And to just close with this one, I don't think that ministers should be with somebody's Kardashian and deed in their hand with a phone, doing a live talking about a resident house. If you have to talk about residents in a particular community who may have breached laws, you do a press conference with the relevant authorities, and you give guidelines and send out a warning stating that, hey, hear what, we are coming to deal with issues such as X, Y, and Z. But to stand up in front of my home or somebody's home with their Kardashian and their deed and say, hear what, and call out my whole government name and say that you're coming to break down my home because of breaches, I think that's uncalled for. And you are not even a minister. You are the minister in the ministry. So what about the engineers in AGC? What about all the different persons who are assigned to that duty? You have taken up now. Is that how we're going to govern this country? If we see something that we believe is illegal, a minister could just take out his phone and threaten citizens or threaten people to demolish or threaten people. Where are we going with this? Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. I think part of it, before we go back to the venue talk, because there's an interesting point to make, part of that whole issue with why is the minister speaking at times when they really shouldn't be speaking, when you have, like, it's interlocking systems that depend on each other. So there's too many failures across the board. So then it's easy for some ministers to think, I'll just do it myself. But then, of course, now the specific example of Alexander is going even further beyond the pale because he's not even handling official business with any degree of professionalism. He's acting like a social media commenter, not a minister.
He was never a minister, right? Yeah. So your social media, you like social media. But like we keep on saying, once you transition from your private space or your professional space or whatever it is outside of, and get into the politics, you are in the limelight. Now, a social media individual is not a politician. We have to be careful. We have to be very careful.
It's similar, but not the same.
Not the same. You could make statements out of social media. You could, but once you get into the umbrella of
listen,
a minister,
I find
politics.
too many social media political commentators don't fully appreciate some of the rules that traditional media people appreciate, and they just go way too far. And because there's some, like, at least when they say nonsense in Parliament, they have privilege to protect them. Yeah, but Minister Alexander at times goes up.
But I agree with this caller in that it was inappropriate, in my opinion, that a minister visits a location of an errant tenantee or of the state. There is a procedure to follow, and I would have appreciated that minister allow the procedure. There are persons supposed to enforce, they're supposed to submit letters. If that is the case, and you want to bring that specific case or incident to how you're addressing overall incidents, and you want to say, listen, we have a particular incident in so and so, and this is how we're going to address incidents across the agency housing facilities. Anybody who breaches X, Y, and Z, this is how we're going to treat with it. But when you go and say, it appears that you are targeting one individual.
Yeah, because he can't do this every time.
No, he can't.
I mean, one would hope he won't.
Right. So I'm saying that it's inappropriate in the way that it was being dealt with.
Now, with regards to Minister Alexander of Homeland Security, I don't know if Mr. Sanfana was referencing the whole FET thing and saying we're not doing it again this year. I'll say this. Yes, the PNM shot to Minister Alexander. It was political, right?
Yes.
Because on some level, you can't necessarily fault him for the decision after the fact. But I think if you can't, wait, hold on, you can't necessarily fault the PNM for pointing out the inconsistency in the government. I think it's just you make it extra political when you just want to single out Minister Alexander in that situation as though he was responsible for everything.
In 2024, when it had Stinker Dirty in Queen's Park, Savannah. 2024.
Okay.
It had Stinker Dirty in the Savannah. In 2025, it went back to Brian Lara.
Okay.
2024, they objected to it in the context that, not to the vet, but the location, because of the risk associated with the amount of traffic and the difficulty.
Who objected?
The police.
Right, yes.
They were
the general hospital is right there.
They were making objections towards the venue
Yeah.
and the location of the venue.
Oh, could you? Well,
who
we
was,
know the Prime Minister is not in the residence in St. Anne's, but could you imagine if...
Who was the administration at that point in time?
The PNM.
Okay. So it was voiced that the location was not the best location for this type of event, considering what transpired at the Brian Lara, understanding that what the Brian Lara gave.
Well, on some level, you're kind of giving PNM people a little bit of ammunition there unintentionally.
No. It was moved, the Fed promoters moved from that location
to Queen's
Park.
Oh, what you're saying is the politicians didn't stop it.
They didn't make an issue about it.
Right, okay.
Right?
The police did.
The police made an issue about it because what they encountered in the Southland, as opposed to what they're going to encounter in Port of Spain, understanding that any small event in Port of Spain has that, and taking this type of event and bringing it into Port of Spain in the Queen's Park Savannah is going to add more issues to get everybody noise, because we had rain.
We ran out of time, but I have a point to make on that. But let's take a comment quick. The public servants do not answer the public, the minister does. Yes, but the public servants answer to the minister. And on some level, certain functions, when you look at an American press conference, when the situation is being run properly, it's not just the mayor that speaks. It's the mayor, it's the sheriff, it's the lead detective, it's the district attorney, and it might be like a couple other lower level people who are the people with the experience or the expertise on whatever it is going on right now, so that the goal is to ensure that this thing is ventilated as much as possible to the public, full transparency, full accountability to the public. Yes, they don't answer the public directly, but they kind of do through the politicians.
Yeah.
Right? Because again, the minister is not supposed to be doing certain functions. Right? So then when the minister comes to speak as though they are responsible for certain functions, I get it. People want to blame them, so that's why they do it. But on some level, one, procedurally it's wrong. Two, PR-wise, it is kind of wrong, because you're reinforcing the fact that when things goes wrong, even if it's not your fault, blame me because I'm taking the responsibility for it.
So on,
right?
on one hand, it might work. On the other side of the table is that whether or not the public servants are actually doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because if I identify, you understand? So
we don't have a proper meritocracy. So there's what I said. There's systems. One of the failing systems that compounds is the fact that you could argue some public servants with the seat that they're occupying. Right? Not all, because it can't be all. If it was all, the country would have collapsed already. The second comment, I do have a hard time taking that seriously, just because take the example with Philip Alexander already. I'm sorry, I'm not really seeing the degree of professionalism and leadership that I would like from this administration. Also, I ain't gonna forget what happened to Joshua Shamaru and the comments of the Minister of Homeland Security, which I believe, you could agree with this or not, he's still acting like a field police officer, not the minister, and a lot of his mistakes and issues with public relations come from that.
Yeah.
Not looking
the bigger picture.
So somebody, a personal friend of mine sent a comment with regards to, look, the traffic out of Chaguaramas is not the issue. They've always been traffic.
Yes.
Right? And then there's always finger pointing. And I think that is part of a wider issue. You also touched on a different aspect of it. These venues are not made for these events. Right? And then when it's time to manage the traffic, it's not as though we have people that are proactively looking at how these things are being done and trying to improve it. The caller pointed out, okay, some improvement was made at the Cricket Academy, right? Mm-hmm. It took some time, lessons learned, at least then lessons were learned. To be fair to the police, learning the lessons at the Cricket Academy, you have options, you have levers to pull to make changes. Chaguaramas, it's one road.
Yes.
With regards to road traffic, there are very few options to get to.
I would say to you that this event would not be going to Chaguaramas again. Not because the minister says so.
Right.
but because of the fact that it's not...
Well, I think the event promoter knows, listen, it will be my fault if I put it there again.
Right. So that is why, like I said, on the last occasion, they chose to go to Brian Lara. There were some little issues because of the crime. There was an incident of shootings, I think, on the highways.
Right.
Right. So they decided to come in, they decided to utilize, because of whatever reason, they decided to go Queen's Park Savannah. The experience in Queen's Park Savannah didn't work out too well because of the major traffic and the concern. They went back to Brian Lara. And so it's about, the promoters are looking for the best location for their venue.
Ironically, the market, I do wonder why the market isn't trying to figure this out, because on some level, you just need to identify an open space and proper road access. You could bring in everything else privately.
Yes, infrastructure could put place.
But then I think it goes back to, again, as you always point out, how do we think about these things? Because that's why we keep putting events up there. And it's fine if the events are of limited size. Even if you have more than one of them, you could stagger them out, right? But it seems as though people are not putting enough thought into these things, enough thought into, because he pointed out, even when there's cricket, there were issues, right? Yeah. Not enough thought being put into when these facilities were built in the first place, whether it's for cricket, for a concert, for a fete, or whatever. And now we're having to try to compensate. But for whatever reason, I'm surprised almost by what the last caller said, because I feel as though at times people are not willing to learn the lessons and improve, right? We kind of just, hey, this is how we always did it, as Mova pointed out, right? And we're just going to keep doing this how we're going to do it, and it should be fine. When it's like, no. You do have to change how you operate, because at least for this fete, I guess they realize, listen, we have grown so large, we cannot take it for granted anymore that it's going to work out, because we will hurt ourselves, right?
I am just hopeful that when we start to deal with 2027 Carnival and all the lessons that we're learning from 2026 and previous, if we want to still keep having this conversation in 2027, we'll just, as our Wednesday finish, we pack up our bag and we say, okay, everything, that was Carnival finish. We go wait until next Carnival. If we keep doing that, we will keep having these conversations on a regular basis. Only when it starts to affect us, then we talk about, we bring it up, we keep on bringing it up. And it does not improve on our ability to manage major events and deal with it from a logical best practice perspectives. I have not even get involved in the conversation with respect to managing that event and the risk associated with that type of event in that particular location. If there was some incident, unforeseen incident, I haven't gone into that as yet.
Because I think this is why, not that I necessarily think it's always a good idea, but when you look at certain events in the States or around the world, internationally, Burning Man and stuff, they find remote locations. One, deals with noise pollution.
Yes.
Two, you're not disrupting the regular day with regards to traffic and the like. However, it's not always the best experience for some people if it's too remote. I understand that, right? I mean, look, not that I want to get into debate, but that whole cultural festival that happened when Hamas attacked Israel, they kind of put it out of the way for a reason, right?
Yes.
So there's a part of me that wonders, and maybe for the government, doesn't have to be, you have to build a whole new venue.
No.
But maybe if you just improve road access to find a nice location, doesn't have a lot of people living there, relatively remote, but not necessarily too far, where you could just improve the road access and say, hey, you see that field?
Sean,
go there.
As Mova keep on mentioning, you need to regulate. Noise pollution will always be an aspect wherever you go with it. However, we have the entities to deal with noise pollution. It matters not where the event is taking place. It's about persons who have an event complying with the regulations that we have for the noise pollution rules. And if that is done, you can take that event and put it anywhere and you will not have those issues.
Well, I mean, so because I do think, yes, you need proper enforcement, which is why I didn't think the ban was a solution. If you have proper enforcement, right, And yes, enforcing it during a fete is tricky, but then it's very simple. The first person that pushes the rules in that capacity, you ain't gonna have no fete next year. It's that simple. If you prove you can't, if you prove you're gonna just be too loud because you think that's what you need to do, we'll just not have a fete next year. Because what the caller from, the last caller said, this is one of the things that bugs me. I have a very limited knowledge of sound design and sound engineering. When you want to just put one massive set of line arrays pointing towards the audience next to the stage in one direction, and you just have it, you have your speakers right next to the stage, so it's basically one spot. You could say two, but you know, basically one spot, right? Right next to the stage, and just cranking up the amps to get the music loud to cover the whole area. I'm like, time out. Time out. Yes, I don't know if it'll be more expensive, but I think it'll be more effective if you put the effort in to have speakers arrayed around the venue so you don't have to crank sound from one side and have it blasting going down the road to the other side. Well, and I've seen this in clubs, right? I've seen this in fetes. That's just one thing that can be done.
This issue with events and events or managing of major events in Trinidad and Tobago from the promoter's perspective, they do what they have to do in terms of what their legal requirements and managing the event, because from a commercial perspective, we have law enforcement aspect of it, where we have to ensure that they comply with the legal requirements of certain areas. Traffic management it should not be the responsibility of any effect promoter.
Yes.
Traffic management is that of the state. And when I say that of the state, it means that whenever you have an event, the general public should not be inconvenienced to such an extent that it hampers your daily activities. You will have some inconvenience, right? But it should not be, the inconvenience shouldn't be unreasonable. It's so unreasonable that you can't even enjoy your own space in that aspect of it. And sometimes we complain about the traffic, but traffic is part and parcel of it because of the fact.
Just level set.
Yes.
Because I have experienced a lot of traffic leaving my house at 7 p.m. But it's not so bad where I'm going to come on the show and complain about it.
But it is unreasonable.
But it is traffic.
But it's unrealistic for anybody to believe that when an event that is going to bring 17,000 plus individuals to a location, that traffic is not going to be an issue. However,
back to culture.
However,
because I would argue, and I don't know what could be done in the case of jewelry effects, so let's just take that off the table now.
So even
I went to Canada for Will You Day 2002 with the Holy Ghost Fathers. That was more or less when I graduated, upper six. And of course, it's a lot of pilgrims. This is a whole international Roman Catholic event converging on Toronto. Everybody's using public transportation. Public transportation can be utilized for large public events.
However,
but you need to have reliable.
It cannot be public transportation specifically for the event.
No.
It must be that the public transportation is reliable and dependable.
You can augment it.
No.
Right? But the point is, you're not trying to create a whole new public transportation system out of thin air.
So you cannot augment.
Nothing.
You can't augment unreliable.
Yes, no, you have to have a proper public transportation
and
working
if
already.
If it was working in the manner in which it would have been working, I am not saying it would have solved all the issues, because at the end of the day, one of the issues with that area by itself, event or no event, just go or venture down Chagaramas on a weekend. Carnival weekend, this is Carnival weekend. No, let's say no event, it has no event. On a normal weekend, go venture down Chagaramas. Is traffic, no matter what, because you have persons who are who go out to the boat on boats. Right, so you have that Western Peninsula. We have a lot of sporting activities and water sports taking place. You have recreational fishing. You have persons who are going to visit, who go down the islands. Plus, we have persons who go on the boardwalk to spend a day. They go to Macrib to utilize the beaches. They go to the other facilities. They have the Bamboo Cathedral, and you do a lot of activities taking place there. So on a regular basis, and add that to the residential traffic we have, the local traffic that you have, right? And there's also commercial and business traffic, commercial and industrial traffic at the same time with that area. Is already traffic on a normal basis.
I think Harvey Morris brought this up, and I can't necessarily remember specifically what he said, so I'm kind of paraphrasing. If there was one area that might require, it might be necessity, not a luxury, to have some sort of separate to the road system, a public transportation setup, some kind of cable car, hanging cable car, something over the sea, whatever, it might be there, because we literally can't put any more road.
No.
And it's kind of insane that you have this hub of activity and you just do not have the transportation infrastructure to maximize its usage. So this might be one of the areas where our government at some point in the future needs to invest in, and it's not going to be cheap, because it's something that's either suspended, hanging on a platform above the roads, on some sort of thing over the sea, whatever. It's not going to be cheap, but it might be necessary. Otherwise, we need to kind of say, okay, all of these, besides maybe the natural, like Macrip and the Bamboo Cathedral stuff, the natural attractions, we need to start pulling out all of these other things one by one, because it's just not tenable given the situation, right? And again, part of it is, look, it's not about trying to solve the problem with a brute force method. Oh, we're going to find a spot, we're going to put a new facility, and we're just going to, put all this money into it. It's like, no, like I said, maybe you just need to find a location and make your location usable.
Exactly.
And that's mainly going to be roads.
Functional. That's
maybe street lights and some water facilities, maybe put some bathrooms down, put electricity down. You don't have to put a whole facility. Something to make it practical. But to look at the situation and say, all right, what is the solution? Not just, okay, what facility we could use, or keep trying the same thing over and over, right? Because ironically, the more successful Carnival is, the worse the problem is going to be if we don't treat with it, right?
So that's what I'm saying. So like when I heard about the ban, when the Prime Minister mentioned the ban on the venues, I said, okay, I have no issues with the ban at this point in time. I know they're going to have some little hiccups with promoters getting particular venues. But I'm also saying that I'm hopeful that that ban, and I mentioned it here,
yes,
that ban would have been the opportunity for discussions going forward to better utilize the venues. And let's say, it means now that the venues that we have that is already built, our sporting facilities, that is underutilized from sporting perspective, who that needs generation of some sort of revenue to assist in renovations, right? It's part and parcel of a discussion. So if it is that you're going to utilize these venues, now putting up something better to utilize the venue, because we can't have our sporting facilities just built and once for the year it is actually being used. I mean, I might be stretching it, being very sarcastic with it, but once for the year it has been used, and then 364 times a year.
Culture is having to understand the restrictions on certain venues, how to treat and not mistreat certain venues.
And that is where a proper policy should be put in place for, if you're using these venues, how are you going to put in place? And that is why I'm saying the conversation has to go further.
But I hate to say this, but it seems as though they didn't have the conversation. Because I'm not blaming the Minister of Planning, unlike MP Devines. But what I am saying is, I think he was trying to figure out an alternative to compensate.
It was a temporary solution for a situation that presented itself. And I'm simply saying, it was used.
But again, it was a situation, what makes it look bad is it was a situation that was created by the government.
Fair enough.
Right? But with that said, it's okay, if you're going to take the lumps of making the decision hastily, at least make it look like it was worth something.
So,
and I don't know if they have any discussion, so I don't know if it's been worth anything.
So if I put on my disaster management skills, hard skill set here now, this event gives me an opportunity to know if an event of any nature what has that volume, what are my challenges I'm going to face. Right. So I know now, or I should say it is compounded now, that there needs to be a better management system in place for events within that area.
Well, also that you can't have a single event of 17,000 people in that area. I would argue. You just can't. You could have events in the area, but 17,000, I don't think you'll have 17,000. And also, what you brought up, more discussions need to be had on that level of event. Because when they had the World Cup qualifier in the stadium months ago, it wasn't quite as bad, but yes, you did see all of the little nooks and crannies where traffic was being disrupted and affected. And I would argue again, this is where...
Did we have any issues for Marshall Monday at the Queen's Park Savannah? Okay.
I don't know how big it was though. I like, not to disparage Marshall, I literally don't know how big it was. I don't think I was on the road that Monday. I can't remember, right? But again, I agree with you. We should be having these discussions, and it should be building up institutional knowledge and skills, right? But it seems as though as people retire, right? As new executive members are brought in and politicians are brought in, right? Lessons, hard-won lessons that might have been learned are gone. I would now argue what's done is done. If you put an event in the Cricket Academy now, there's maybe a 50%, I'm just spitballing here, a 50% chance it's going to be right back to the beginning. Because you lost the momentum, whatever positive momentum you had, and now it's harder to put it back, right? But we're out of time. I'll just say this. I have somebody I know who complained about the PNM right alongside everybody else for the last 5 to 10 years. Just said that they're now starting to miss the PNM, apparently. And people might not appreciate that, but I'll just say this. As the government, it behooves you to not do things to allow yourself to be perceived in such a manner where the person that was kicked out just before you, already you have someone saying, oh, I miss them because I'm still waiting to win. Because this is what the PNM did. The PNM allowed themselves to be perceived a certain way by how they communicated. And I would argue the UNC, they're starting to do some of the same things. Just ask Philip, just ask Barry, just ask Roger. And then now, the Prime Minister, we don't hear from her, actually. We just get texts and tweets, right? To be fair, though, I do think the leader of the opposition, whether she has a lot to say or not, should also make herself present as leader of the opposition. But that is, I guess, in her situation, less important than the Prime Minister. It is what it is.
Sean?
Thanks to the callers, thanks to the commenters.
Sean, Carnival Friday?
Yeah, I know, right?
Precursor to the greatest show on earth. I'm just hoping that Trinidad and Tobago has a safe Carnival. I know historically we do, in fact, have we have responsible individuals for Carnival. It's one of the time that you really wonder why we don't have Carnival on a regular basis, because when you see the amount of persons come on the streets of Trinidad and Tobago and enjoy themselves, you don't see the issue of race, religion, culture,
you do realize our GDP will tank, right?
Yeah.
When you have the majority of the population party, and the GDP will tank. Like, our budget will tank, the GDP will tank, earnings will tank, business will tank.
Yes.
We will go broke and starve.
Well, that's okay. but at the end of the day, we enjoy.
No, I understand what you're saying.
We enjoy ourselves.
I understand what you're saying. I think the better question is, if we could be that way during Carnival, why can't we be that way outside of Carnival?
I'm not saying that all the way that we behave for Carnival, and we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Right. So we hope that Trinidad and Tobago have a safe Carnival 2026. And Sean, I wouldn't be on the streets. I will be somewhere else.
Yes. Happy for you, folks. I'll just reiterate our media ambassadors' points. Please don't pick a drunk fight with police officers during Carnival. It will not be fun, right? Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Everything that's gone on, just don't do it, right? Stay safe. I would tell you don't do any drugs, but I know some of you won't listen. It is what it is. Don't. Those of you in tribe, leave it home. Leave it home, right? Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Be nice to everybody that's on your road, including national security during the Carnival festivities. Hopefully we'll see y'all, everyone safe and sound, after Carnival. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Well, this is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for staying with us here on WESN. Let's tell you what we're talking about this morning. I could tell you that when I was growing up, there's a place called Santa Flora, which is next to my village called Los Baos. I tell you about that all the time. There used to be, that was the center of activity, a place called the Sub-Night Ground in Santa Flora, where I saw a lot of bands as a growing up child for Carnival every year. And then one year, it just stopped happening, and that's a couple of decades ago. Well, the people in the Superior Regional Corporation are trying to revive that tradition this year, so there's going to be Carnival in Santa Flora. And one of the persons behind that is my friend and compatriot, we're going to call him that, Ronald Prince. He's an alderman at the Superior Regional Corporation. He's the person in the corporation who is driving the straw for that to happen. Well, he had two other collaborators with him, one called Avalon Felix and Roy Batiste. Mr. Felix is the PRO of the organization that has been resurrected to do this, and Mr. Batiste is the vice chair. We tried to get them on, but we had some challenges. But we're talking with Mr. Prince on it. Good to have you. Good to see you, my friend.
Pleasant good morning and happy Valentine to everyone.
Okay, and same to you. Well, let's talk about the revival of the Carnival in Santa Flora. That I was saying, I saw a lot of mass there growing up. There's a couple of years ahead of you from our village. So let's talk about what led to the coming back of the Santa Flora Carnival then.
Well, everyone keep asking. We normally have a Monday night mass, which is a bit scaled down. But everyone has been asking, especially the older folks, that they want the Carnival back, the creativity.